Hey, this is Brent Anderson. Welcome to another Pilates Hour on Thursday afternoon with Polestar. And super excited today with the guests that I've invited and been working with from the Pacific Institute. I have with me Scott Sproul, who is the CEO and owner, one of the owners of TPI, and Tracy Smith, who is a lead facilitator and educator and also curriculum developer for TPI. So we've been working very closely together the last couple of years, and it actually started with our involvement with Shake a Leg Miami. And so another one of the leads in TPI, David McCain, had introduced Scott and Mark and me together in bringing TPI, or the Pacific Institute, to Shake a Leg Miami to be able to facilitate some growth and development from a business standpoint of a not-for-profit business, and in particular being able to provide education for children with disabilities and veterans that have disabilities. And the whole idea was bringing in this thought management system. So from there, we realized how great it is, and we started asking questions about, this is in alignment with Polestar Life, which many of you are familiar with already. Where we were looking at all of the teachings of Joseph Pilates, where Joseph Pilates said that whole body health could be achieved through exercise, good nutrition, good hygiene, sleep habits, and then plenty of fresh air and sunshine, and a balance between work life and play and recreation, and that whole idea of mindfulness and stress management. And so as we started looking at what are our biggest challenges to getting people to participate in what we prescribe or what we believe in as Pilates teachers? And one of the biggest challenges we have is getting people motivated to believe that they could take the action necessary to change their life, to be healthy, to live by Polestar Pilates and Pilates' whole concept and philosophy of health and well-being. So with me, I have Scott and Tracy. Scott, if you want to take just a second and introduce yourself, a little bit about your passions and your time with TPI, and then we'll have Tracy do the same thing.
Sure. Thank you, Brent. Just making sure I came off of mute. And thank you first for this opportunity to join the group.
Oh, great. So good to have you guys here. I'm glad you could do it.
Yeah, we're thrilled in the partnership. Thank you for the belief in what we do. I know we're going to unpack that a little bit more here over the hour. But thank you. We share the passion with you in your mission, and I know we're incredibly aligned in the mission of the Pacific Institute and the Polestar Pilates mission, and really that's to help people be their best. Oversimplifying that, but I think we're in a common mission there.
Absolutely.
And my quick travels, that took me to the Institute is I spent a lot of time in the healthcare industry, particularly also in the mental health area. And did back in school some brain cancer research and all of those fun things. And I've been around the brain in a variety of ways, both academically as well as then from a leadership standpoint for a long time. And what's been fascinating about meeting the Institute, who I met through one of our partners today back about 8.5 years ago, is that for me it was the aha moment for that missing link to be able to provide very science-based education to be able to help us understand how we think about what we think about and how to unlock ourselves to be able to grow and be better. And in business and in life, I've always attempted to try and do that for myself, and in business really help to try and help other people do that. And now we just have a new set of tools with this education we'll talk about and more to be able to take that to another level. And so over the last 8 years that I've been with the Institute, we unfortunately had during that period the passing of our co-founders, and I'll show them in just a few minutes. And it's really been us re-engineering the organization to build off of a 45-year-old incredible platform that they built for us to now help take that legacy into many generations to come.
And I think that's one of the things most impressive to me also is the longevity, from when Lou first started, which you'll talk about in a little bit, and just, I was sort of thinking of the territories that both of our companies cover. We've been around for 30 years. You guys have been around for close to 50 years. And looking at the expansiveness of this idea of well-being, one from more of a physical and movement perspective, and one more from a mental and emotional perspective. And I think that it's just such perfect harmony for us. I was going to ask Tracy if she wanted to tell a little bit about herself and her background, and introduce herself into the Polestar group.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brent. Great to be here today. I'm super excited to be a part of this. I've really been enjoying working with Polestar, and actually I was, around in those first shake a leg conversations as well a couple of years ago. And so this has been really fun to see how this has come forward from there, and really what your vision was for us working together. I've been with the Pacific Institute, gosh, Scott, if you've been there 8 years, I've been there probably 16 years now in a variety of roles, and have the privilege of working with the co-founders directly, Lou and Diane Tice, and Scott will be sharing more about them in a minute. But it's really been a passion of mine, and being with TPI, to just get this information out to as many people as we can touch globally. And I've been able to go to Istanbul, Turkey, and Japan, and Mexico, and South America, and all over the world, being able to help deliver our programs to people. And it's been a true privilege for me, and I'm super excited to be doing this. And just speaking of the global family, even with the groups we're doing this week, having them from Turkey and Russia and Greece and all over the world, it's just been amazing. So thank you for allowing us to be a part of this.
No, thank you guys. I was going to say that, Tracy's been facilitating. We did the first cohort that we ran of the mindsetting program was with our educators in the United States. And we had a wonderful time with that. And Tracy's just a masterful facilitator. She has great energy. She knows how to read the group. And now we're doing 2 more cohorts. One that's our Asia Pacific licensees and some of our educators from there, and then also our sort of European and American, South American licensees and educators. And it has been, we just started, so we're on our second one today. We did one this morning, we have another one this afternoon. And I just wanted to say publicly how grateful I am for your skill set, Tracy, and your facilitation skills. I think I've been to a lot of different courses and trainings and facilitations over the years, and I do think your skills are par none. They're great. And Scott, you have this vision that I relate to 100%, and I know that you and I have. We could spend hours and days together on retreats brainstorming of how to change the world. And we've done that already. We've been up in the farm for a little while. So this is a great time. Scott, tell us a little bit about TPI. Tell us a little bit about, I asked Scott to share with you some of the history and the things that are important to me personally, which is things like, where does it come from? Where's the evidence-based practice? And, what are the principles built into that? And so Scott's prepared a little presentation that I think you'll enjoy and will give you some clarity of what, why I'm so excited about TPI.
Yeah, thank you, Brent. And Melissa, if I can have the next slide, please.
By the way, our famous Melissa is handling everything from the back end, and you don't see her face, but we appreciate her immensely for keeping us all looking good and being efficient with our time. Go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
Absolutely, no worries. And as Brent mentioned, I'm a visual person, so I put together a few slides to help as we explain a little bit about who the Pacific Institute is, who we are, where we came from, why we do what we do, and it's, Brent, you keep these very interactive, so Tracy and I and Brent will be very fluid through the conversation here, and I know we're going to have lots of opportunities to be able to have questions as well. So the Pacific Institute started back in 1971, and I'm going to share a picture in a second of our co-founders. 1971, birthed out of Seattle, Washington, and today we've had the pleasure in working over almost 50 years, as Brent mentioned, and next year's our 50th anniversary. We've had the chance of working in over 60 countries. We've worked in 23 languages. We've worked with some form or fashion of almost half of the Fortune 1000 companies in the US. We've worked with tens of thousands of leadership teams. We've had close to about 6.5 million or more people around the globe go through some form of our mindsetting education over the last 49 plus years. And this has been, I think what you'll see in the education and a testament to the test of time, both in the education, the principles that our education is founded on stand the test of time. And what we do, and you'll see in a few moments how we stay true to the science, is we make sure that we are always watching what's emerging, what's new coming in the fields of cognitive and neuroscience. And then we bring that knowledge and education into our curriculum to stay relevant, but also to build off a chassis that is timeless. So this is our wonderful founders. As I mentioned, we unfortunately have lost both of them. And Lou in 2012 and Diane just earlier this year. And they're just amazing people. They were both high school teachers. Lou was a football coach and a high school teacher, obviously, up in Seattle, Washington. And as part of his master's in ed, and they both came from very poor families. But as part of Lou's master's in ed, he was trying to make a little bit more money as a teacher. He took a psychology course. And for Lou, that was the aha, the light bulb went on. And he and Diane believed that people had unlimited potential. But unfortunately, many of us don't live up to that potential or don't realize that potential. And Lou and Diane were frustrated that they couldn't bring more of the potential out of their students or their student athletes. And so when Lou went through the psychology program, he had an epiphany. He's like, yeah, here is the key to unlock potential. It's the key to unlock the mind. And that sent Lou and Diane and a whole host of other people at the Institute now for 50 years on this quest to learn about the principles of cognitive science, neuroscience, and social learning theory, and then bring the complex principles into something very practical and easy to use as an education program. And that was their gift to us, taking the complex and making it simple. And we continue to build on that to this day.
Yeah.
And anything you wanted to add, Brent, to just the story of Lou and Diane?
I think just historically, one of the things I admire about being able to have a legacy program that you've had for all these years, and then being able to also, with respect of the founders, take it to another level almost, and that's what we all feel in the Pilates world. Pilates was over 100 years ago. And, we are careful in our respect not to do anything that would disrespect the philosophy and the teachings of Joseph and Clara Pilates. So again, a lot of similarities to me, and yet you as a company have continued to evolve the work based on the current sciences. And I think that that's something that to me is what was most exciting, to see how, using the latest technologies, the latest research, the latest facilitation skills, to be able to still drive that vision that Lou and Diane had, 50 years ago. Just very cool.
Yeah, thank you, Brent. Another parallel, right, between our two organizations. Yeah. And to your point about evolution, Lou and Diane gave us this incredible gift of education, and then really wanted to make sure that we did the most with that education. So over the last 25, 30 years in particular, we really have evolved into a full-scale consulting organization. And so what does that mean? Well, today we have a very powerful set of diagnostic or assessment tools to help illuminate mindset in organizations from a culture standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, and from a personal standpoint. And we use those tool sets on the front end to help figure out and illuminate what's our strengths and where are those areas that we don't see that are holding us back. And then we use our curriculum to really come in and unlock the mind, because if we can't unlock the mind, we're always going to see the world, the people in it, our job, everything through the same lens, right?
Yeah.
So it's about unlocking.
I was going to say one thing on there. You talked about your tools and the assessment tools, and that was another key element that was impressive to me because, and this now because we've been working together on some of these things, but our whole focus in Polestar has been to develop assessment tools that allow us to prescribe appropriate interventions for the person's physical, emotional needs. And likewise in TPI, you have all these tools that whether it's for business or for personal or family or relationships of how to assess and have tools that are validated to be able to help us make better decisions. and to help us see where our shortcomings are and that gap we talk about of overcoming the gap. So again, just the fact that there's an assessment tool that's validated and been used for years is so important as it pertains to this content area.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Brent. And as I mentioned, we couple that assessment tool then with the ability to unlock the mind with this powerful education program. And then really we help people then with the practice of that. Now that we're able to think differently, how do we practice that new way of thinking in order to behave differently, to lead differently, to perform differently, to set new goals, to achieve those goals, to realize our potential? And that's our ultimate goal, is whether it's an organization, big or small, nonprofit, for-profit, whether it's a village in Africa or a Fortune 50 company, whether it's an inmate in a penitentiary, a custody staff, or a boardroom, whether it's education across the whole levels. We've worked with everybody, all branches of the military. And so the one common denominator in there has been mindset, how people think. And so I'll conclude this piece on this.
White House yet?
Sorry?
Have you got into the White House yet?
Not yet, but we're working on it. And so
that's all I'm going to say.
So the thing is you may see, and you'll see, you saw in the opening slides, and you'll see in the titles of our programs, we use this word, we may have coined it ourselves, around mindsetting. And some of you may have read Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, and really is a powerful job of explaining what's growth versus a fixed mindset. Well, we view mindset not as a noun. It's not static. It's a verb. It's something that we can action. We can change our mindset. And that's why we call our programs Mindsetting 4. And so to that end, we talked about sort of this, our education and our work being rooted in the sciences. I won't go through into all the detail here, but I know, Brent, there's a couple here that stand out for you, one in particular. And I'm just going to I'm going to open with that and mention one other person and turn back to you. And that really, one of the first persons that Lou and Diane started working with was Dr. Albert Bandura. He's from Stanford. And if you're not familiar with Dr. Bandura and his work, he is the most cited living psychologist, and I believe the third most cited psychologist of all time. And his work is around, seminal work was around self-efficacy, the belief that we can bring about or make something happen. And Lou and Diane started working with him. And so in essence, our curriculum is really around building self-efficacy, self-esteem, self-confidence. And then there was a whole group of researchers that we started to interact over the years. Dr. Gary Latham is a wonderful researcher in goal setting. Dr. Martin Seligman, really an expert in well-being. And I'll mention then in just Dr. Amy Young as an example. Amy Young is one of the more recent researchers we're working with. She's at the University of Michigan. And she also is with a group called the Center for Positive Organizations. And she's been instrumental in working with one of my partners, Mike O'Brien, in the development of our blueprint tool set. That's that mindset tools assessment set. And so it's been validated through the University of Michigan. And Amy's just a brilliant researcher, and she loves our work because she really connects into the world of communications and belonging and meaningful communications and meaningful relationships. And so that's, some of the folks that we've worked with. We continue to work with many of these and others. And Brent, maybe if you want to share your connection to Albert Bandura's work and that to Polestar.
I mean, within my reach, my dissertation was on self-efficacy and low back pain. So there's probably like 40 quotes from Albert Bandura in here, and many people that he trained that were doing research on self-efficacy and low back pain. So it was funny because we were at Shake a Leg, and I was sort of thinking like, yeah, this is another, like we went through NLP training, we've gone through a lot of communication training, diversity training in Polestar, and I don't remember which one of you dropped the Bandura word, but I said, Albert Bandura? It's like, yeah. I said, oh, okay, now I'm really listening, because he's one of my heroes in the self-efficacy and behavior modification world. So it was an instant tie there too. So
perfect.
Yeah, I like Seligman's work a lot. So I'm also familiar with that. So, that was just icing on the cake.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just a quick note too. What's interesting is Dr. David Matsumoto. I was always wondering what work did we pull in of his, and it was really around nonverbals. And so if you think of these days of virtual engagements, boy, nonverbals are more important than ever for us to pick up on, right?
Yeah.
it was fascinating where Lou back, 20, 30 years ago was looking at those things and how we have better connectedness, how we can understand that from a standpoint of beliefs, because we judge very quickly. But, is our judgment always servicing us in the best way, right?
Exactly.
And so, yeah, it's fascinating, and it's an amazing area to continue to learn in. If I can go to the next slide, please, Melissa. And really, this is just a mention here to show that we continue to stay rooted in the sciences. And so this is just some pages from a bibliography of one of our programs. We also have a committee around the globe called our Global Research and Application Committee. And that committee is active as a volunteer group throughout the years, researching new topics, titles, areas of importance. They did some seminal work in well-being with us. That's where they really unpacked Marty Seligman's work. And so we continue to stay very true to and rooted in the sciences, but making it as simple and practical as we can.
I think that's the, there is great research out there in all of our fields. It's how do we make it available to the professional, and how do we make it available to the consumer? And, there's so much gap of what, that's theories of what people believe, but there's no validation behind it. And, a lot of times it causes disruption because it's misleading, and people think that this is like they can't change, like this is how I am, or I had this diagnosis and that's who I am for the rest of my life. That's my name. My name is stenosis, it's like, and being able to understand the literature certainly doesn't support that. And as we go in and we get the literature, the problem is who's capable of interpreting the literature and bringing it to a layperson to be able to give them education and hope and understanding of ways that they can be in charge of their life and way that they can be in charge of their well-being. So
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Brent. And this education is all about putting us or you back in charge. And when we talk mindset, we really have exemplified or illustrated that in this, what we call the performance wedge. And so if you think about what we mentioned about Lou and Diane, believing wholeheartedly that people had unlimited potential, but we rarely achieve that potential that we have. What is it that gets in our way? And what gets in our way, we've caught in this sort of acronym here, is around the word behave. And what's interesting about this is we often see the behaviors of people and ourselves, but we don't really then investigate what's behind those behaviors. And when we start to learn about that, we appreciate now that, to Brent's point, we all have become something for a reason. And it's generally because we have created beliefs that have created expectations that have led to habits that have created our attitudes. And then we have to look at how those juxtapose to our values, or the values where we live or work in, and the environment that we live and work in. And those beliefs, expectations, habits, and attitudes are something that we acquire throughout our lives. And what's fascinating is, to Brent's point, we often think, well, this is who we are. And those beliefs can become so strong that they become our truths, our facts. And yet what we learn is they could have been just someone's opinion when we were very young or at an impressionable time. By that opinion, you'll never be good at math. Oh, you won't be tall enough. You're not smart enough. You're too big. You're not pretty enough. All of these things, when taken from somebody that's of importance to us, sink deeply into our subconscious. And what we want to learn to appreciate is they guide our decisions of ourselves and the people around us and what we do every single day. And the power in this education is twofold. One is it's a very intentional sequence of learning how the mind works, our operating system. And then once we learn how the mind works, we have the license to be able to change the way we think. Now, when we can say we can change the way we think, how do we put that into practice to be able to realize more of our potential? And so that's really then how we sort of encapsulate this into this behave model, if you will, to unleash our potential, to get our self-imposed limitations out of our way, to change our beliefs, to be able to change our behaviors and realize more of our own true potential.
Cool. Yeah, I love a lot of the tools that are in there. One of the things that Shelley and I appreciate the most has just been the practicality of applying the tools to be able to really understand ourselves You know, it's not, I never felt like somebody was telling me what I needed to believe or what was the right thing to believe, but it was the tools to be able to understand where my expectations come from, how my habits can either help or hinder my ability to grow and develop, and you know that I'm in charge of my attitude. Nobody else is in charge of my attitude. Yeah, I mean, I think this is super powerful. You know, I'd love to do now is to hear from Tracy a little bit about. We've been going through, as we mentioned, a couple cohorts now, and we're going through there. And we've been getting a lot of great feedback. This, by the way, is a new course that you've launched to be able to be a hybrid between sort of a self-paced, asynchronous learning online and then a facilitated face-to-face virtual. And we've really enjoyed it. So now going through the third time in that aspect and having gone through it face-to-face a couple times as well, you know, I'm really starting to understand it, but I'm always a little slow on that. But Tracy, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about like what would they expect from this particular course? What would they expect personally, those kind of things? And by the way, out there in the Polestar Pilates, this would be the time if you have questions about things like mindset or things that Scott brought up or things that Tracy is going to talk about, please feel free to send your questions or comments into us. We'd love to spend the last 15, 20 minutes making it relevant to you, and hopefully this is important to you as it is to me. So Tracy, you want to share a little bit about what actually is going on inside the workshop? What should people expect? What do you see from that 30,000 foot looking down in the lives that you've been able to help facilitate change in?
Excellent. Thank you, Brent. I appreciate that. So if I were to go back to what Scott had been talking about a second ago with that wedge that he showed, and what we get the opportunity to do is help people recognize that they all have pretty much unlimited potential within them, and that we have those roadblocks like he showed you that can stop us from actually achieving all that we're capable of achieving. And it really boils down to, for the most part, to that mindset. What beliefs am I hanging on to? What habits or attitudes have I picked up or created along the way? That people have gifted me and I've given sanction to, or that I've put upon myself. So what we get to do is help give you tools, and you were so right, Brent, when you said with the application of, we're going to not only give you the concepts around beliefs and limiting beliefs and liberating beliefs, and how when we lock on to one way of thinking, we lock out all this other opportunity and information around us. We're actually going to give you the tools to apply it in your life, personally, professionally. There's even things in here that apply in your family, to your kids. This is a very well-rounded program, if you will, because it touches every area of our lives. And that's, to me, what is so powerful in it. It's not just here, take this book, go read it, and have a great day. We're actually going to experience the application of it together. We're going to self-discover what it means to start to change some of those limiting beliefs we might have. What are some of those blind spots we might have where there's information that's out there, but we're not recognizing it or not seeing it because we've locked on to one way of thinking. And so that's what we get to do through the course of this program. And it's especially fun with Polestar because you're all coming at this with a great awareness of all this anyway. And so it's just that next level, that next step in your growth as educators and working with your students and clients, and how you can help them start to change their beliefs that they might have to grow into the person that they want to be, and whatever that looks like, from a health perspective, from a mindset perspective, from a financial perspective. It reaches everybody at different places. So I get very excited about it.
No, Tracy, I was just opening up my book and that I'd done the first time going through. So this was over a year ago. And we're looking at the growth wheel that's such a fundamental part of the mind setting program. And I was looking at one of the belief sections that, one of the things that really opened my eyes is I really asked the question, the idea was, what do I want? Like, what's important to me? And obviously health is important to me, and physical health is important to me. And one of the things I wrote down was in current belief, and it almost brings that emotional feeling in my throat when I look at it, but it's, I'm too damaged.
Mm.
And that was really powerful because here I am teaching the world how to be healthy. And I have an internal belief that I'm too damaged to be healthy from my sports injuries and surgeries and all the metal parts inside my body. And I was having a real struggle. And this was before I had my hip replacement. So I already knew I was pretty damaged physical goods. But, it was like one of the things that helped me through was identifying that being whole was not having all of my parts. Being whole was being able to live life wholly. And so it helped me process a decision that was very clear to me that I would be better off having a hip that's artificial, that works and allows me to participate in life wholly, than to have all of my parts wholly. And that was a real block. Like, I couldn't get around that block. It was a really tough one for me. And, and I won't share any other ones in there because they're very personal, but it was that kind of thing that was life-changing for me in things that I know. It's like I've gone through, I remember doing a meditation years ago where, I had to deal with expectations. And so I was asked to, every perceived expectation that was given to me by somebody else, as Scott mentioned, like, we're not born with expectations, we're given expectations from people around us. And I made a list. It was 400 people and expectations that I'd done in a period of a couple hours. And then the second chapter of the meditation was, now fold those up nicely, give them back with gratitude as if they were costumes or layers of clothing, and getting to that point where, the last couple ones that were like, mom and grandma and my wife and my kids, the really important ones to me, and realizing that, there was a little bit of fear that I actually had of being naked from those expectations. You know what I'm saying? It's like I defined myself by this. So was I going to like myself in that state of removing all those expectations that came from other people? And that was probably one of the biggest gestalts in my life, of thinking that when that last little bit was pulled away, what I felt was this unconditional acceptance of who I am from the universe, from God. Like, I felt like my good, my bad, my black, my white, my yellow, all the colors, all the smells, all the aspects of who Brent Anderson is, I felt I was accepted. And it was a huge change for me to be able to have that paradigm shift of being able to think of who I am. Like, now I could observe and see who I am now. And if you've done my meditations, you know that I always ask that question, who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose in life? And I felt like going through this in a very technical way as well allowed me to put words to it, allowed me to create the image of what I want to be, allowed me to create the color, the sounds, the light, and all the things that the people that I want to be around, and the person that I want to be able to articulate it. Where I felt it. And I think all of us feel that. And I think we get frustrated when the old expectation voices keep coming back in that say things like, you're too damaged. Super powerful. We have a comment from Sarah. She's asking, this is a great question, Sarah, by the way. Is this something we can offer to our clients, or is this for our own personal growth, or are both options available? And Scott, we've talked about this so much over the last year of making products that do what?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Sarah. And to Brent's point, it's a both and. And so we'll share with you before we wrap up on this webinar, really the program that is about, for you and your clients, if you want, that is offered in two formats. One is a format that comes with very, we got some feedback.
I'm gonna mute.
There we go. That comes in a format that comes with interactive group discussion sessions through Zoom or through a video conference program. And then another program that comes more as a self-paced, self-directed learning. So for you just to take yourself on your device, whether it's a laptop or a tablet, etc. And we'll come back and share a little bit more about that with you. But we're really designed for both your own personal growth, and you could have a family member go through it if you wanted as well, or a friend, and then also to be able to give this to your clients. And I think the power in this is as you practice yourself. Lou had a wonderful quote that was, all lasting and meaningful change starts on the inside and works its way out. And so it's wonderful for us to work on ourselves, think about putting our own oxygen mask on first. And then when your clients are able to have a similar language and similar knowledge of some of the concepts that you're practicing, now, boy, the connection and the communication is that much more powerful. So it's really a both and.
I was saying I had my whole family go through it. So if you remember, I brought, my son and daughter, my wife in just because it was the second time I was going through it. I was thinking like, wow, wouldn't it be great to have the same language across all of us? Sarah also added to that was, what about the scope of practice in regards to mental health professionals? And this is a great question as well. And just my comments on it is, you don't have to be the one facilitating it. It's a self-driven program that's designed by mental health professionals. And it's more of a self-help and maybe in the line that you would think of coaching. So like when we think of certifying a Pilates teacher with a PMA, we're certifying a level of coaching. They're not physical therapists, they're not doctors. When you think of a nutritional coach or an exercise coach, you could theoretically be a mind-setting coach. You could go through the training with an organization like TPI to become a mind-setting coach, which would be similar to maybe closest we'd have out there that you'd recognize would be to be a certified life coach. But you could be a mind-setting coach for TPI through the training. So it does fit within our scope of practice. It fits perfectly within the different levels that we work with. So being able to prepare our students to be able to do better in their education, prepare our graduates to be better in their communication with their clients, to have their clients prepare themselves better to be more motivated and clear about what they want in their objectives of health and well-being. So it has a benefit to everybody inside the system. Yeah, Scott.
Yeah, Brent, if I can just add one piece, great question on the mental health, and to piggyback on you, Brent, is that we clearly will say we're not mental health professionals. We are experts and trained in helping people understand through our education how your mind works, and then how to use the tools and the education to be able to change the way you think, change the way you perform. But we also recognize that some people through the process may want a mental health professional. So we're a wonderful complement to that. And actually what's nice is we're exploring opportunities to work with mental health professionals because it's a complement to the other traditional or new ways of helping people. Just because we take a different approach around a more holistic understanding of how we got wired the way we got wired, and then what are the tools to change that. So you're right on, Brent, from your perspective, as well as I add in there, we're very fluid in making the connections to and from and the relationship with mental health professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another comment and a question from Rose. While I answer that question, I also asked Tracy to get ready to share something with us from the actual training. Just sort of, it's one of the little tools that they use in the training to help us realize and learn a lesson, right? It's sort of what our perception's like. There's a comment from Rose, and you can go ahead and get ready for that if you want, Tracy, with Melissa. But Rose said, can you share a success story of how you may have used these tools to help a client change his or her mindset? And what was your process, communication with your client? And Rose, again, that's a fantastic question. And, I've been working with chronic pain patients for decades, and a lot of this has to do with communication. And what I find is, and we've used this forever in our sort of philosophy in Polestar, is seeking first to understand. And so I ask questions, and I don't make assumptions that because they have a diagnosis that they have a, that they have a problem, or that is the problem just because of a diagnosis. So I believe, I think it was Carol Davis taught me years ago that the client knows best what they need and what they want. They just don't know how to articulate it. So a lot of times using some of these tools that you'll see even now is, you know, when people realize that what they see or feel is not really what they see and feel, it's not the whole picture, and that there's a lot more to them and that they have potential to be better. Like I can see past me being broken, too broken to be healthy, and start an exercise program just like I would prescribe for my clients. You know, I had a belief that I could never be successful because nobody in my family had ever been successful before. And somebody actually had told me that in my family that I had the curse of my dad and my uncle and his family, you know, and it's like those are weird things, really weird things that stick in our minds. Well, when somebody's told that they have certain diseases or certain pathologies, it does the same thing. So I've used these same concepts as a way to facilitate shift in mindset, to be able to prepare them to see that they have a potential to be better. They have a responsibility to be disciplined if they want to get better. It's the communication with them. And so these are just some powerful tools that we can use. And I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to take us through a little exercise that we do in the TPI course.
All right, thank you, Brent. So just to come back to your story for a second, Brent, about your belief, you know, and the I'm so damaged or too damaged. That sets a story in our mind. And what happens is, if we're not aware of it, we can potentially be blocking out other ways of doing things, other ways of becoming healthy, other ways of being able to be, you know, be the best version of us every day. And when we have a locked mindset like that, it can actually really limit us. And so part of the fun of what we get to do through this education is help people unlock that. Just Brent's example was terrific for that, having that story in his head and then having that breakthrough of, wait a second, that's not me. You know, I see me very differently. This is who I want to be. And you grew into that. And I love that. So what I want to do with this next exercise that I'm gonna show you, just to kind of show how we all have these areas that maybe we have blind spots in, that we don't see the real truth. I'm gonna have Melissa in a second put something up on the screen for everybody, and there's gonna be a poll involved. So get ready for that poll. All right, so what I want you to do now is I want everybody to read this sentence really quickly to yourselves one time. Just one time. Don't worry about it. Okay, Melissa, go to the next slide. All right. So my question to you is, oh, I wish I could see your faces. My question to you is, and this could be fun in the chat, so Melissa, keep us aware. Did that sentence even make sense to you when you read it? Melissa, if you could just tell us what they're saying. Maybe not. Okay, well, I'm just going to believe that it probably didn't make a lot of sense to you, and that's okay. And if we were all on the screen together, I'd be asking for awesome volunteers to repeat to me what they thought they read. Because the bottom line is it was something about finished files and experts and years of experience and all sorts of things. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and that's okay. So what I'm going to do in just a minute is we're going to, not yet though, we're going to put that sentence back up. And I'm going to have you read it again to yourself. And I want you to really look at it and focus. And if you don't get it all the first time, don't worry about it. No pressure. It's not a big deal. We'll tell you what it is. But what I want you to do is, when I put it back up here on the screen, I'm going to have you count the number of letter F's that you read in that sentence really quickly. Just go through it, count the number of letter F's. All right, Melissa, go ahead. All right, quickly to yourself. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Melissa, move that screen. All right, this would be where we would put our poll up, because I want to see what your answers were. So go ahead and Melissa, do the poll and let us know the results. So how many F's did you count in that sentence? 0 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, or 7 to 8? Give you just a second for that. I need a big timer with a clock going tick, 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 tick.
Need the Jeopardy music.
Exactly. There we go. That would be perfect.
I think that's time. They got to know what they counted already.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. That's good. All right, let's see what we came up with on this. All right, so it looks like we've got 31% of our people. Hey, how many, Brent, how many people are on the call, by the way?
We're like 115 on the call.
115 people, 31% got a 0 to 2, 39% got a 3 to 4, 20% 5 to 6, and 9% 7 to 8. How interesting. So what I want to ask all of you, go ahead, you can put us back up, Melissa. Thank you. What I want to ask all of you is, how on earth can we all be looking at the same thing yet having such different responses?
And that's a pretty even distribution. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
I don't really have 9% in that last one, and the 0 to 2, that was, yeah. Anyway, it's quite fascinating. How on earth we can all be looking at the same thing. And what I want you to think about is, how often does that happen to us in our daily lives? It could be with our students, it could be with our family, it could be with our business partners, that we think we're having the same conversation. We think we're all aligned and moving in the same direction. We think that we've all got the same idea, the same vision, and yet we all see things very differently, even though we all looked at the same sentence.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to have that come back up on the screen again, because I'm going to help you out. Don't just click it one time, Melissa. There we go. That's it right there. So what's really fascinating about this, as you read it, and now you're all looking at it again, we learned how to read phonetically. Okay, so this is very important. We learned how to read phonetically. So when I asked you to count the number of letter Fs, your mind kicked into action and said, okay, I'm going to look for the letter Fs. Well, if we learn to read phonetically, letter Fs sound like a F, right? The F. So most of you counted and got most all of the Fs that you see in those words, like finished and files, you know, and so you saw that. What I'm curious about is how many of you happen to count the Fs that are in the word of, because of doesn't sound like an F, it sounds like a V. And so when we set our brain in action to find the letter Fs, it said, I got this. I'll go through and look for all the Fs. Totally skipped over the word of for most of us, I'm sure. And that's how our mind works. That's how we can have blind spots. So if you happen to be looking at this sentence right now, furiously counting through, trying to figure it all out, I'll let you off the hook. There are 7 Fs. 7 Fs in this sentence. So interesting that the smallest group, the 9%, a portion of that 9% got the 7 Fs correctly. They saw all of it. Most people see 2 to 3, just from a perspective. So Brent or Scott, anything you would add to that?
Yeah, just to your point, Tracy, is this is one that we often do in the early part of the work that we do, because what it does is it sort of opens our eyes to, holy cow, how could I miss that right in front of me? And then, particularly for naysayers that are, you know, that might think that, you know, I know all of this stuff, it's a wonderful creator of gestalt or dissonance to go, okay, well, maybe there's other things that I might be missing. But it really just brings front and center to us exactly what Tracy was mentioning, is that once we get programmed to do things in a certain way, we focus on that and we lock out the other ways to see things. And sometimes that could be as trivial in its sense of doing this exercise, or it could be so important to missing something that's a life and death situation, or a connection or something that's really important to your significant other, or to a family member, or to your business partner, or to your client, because we get so focused and locked on to the way we're programmed. So this just tells us that it happens every day. And just to Tracy's point, the majority of people that do this exercise get 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 Fs. So it's a really powerful exercise to bring our awareness to, holy cow, now tell me why does this happen, right? And then help unpack that more.
Well, let's take it a step further. Why is that important? Like, when you think of all of the senses being bombarded, like I'm actually in front of a window looking out at a storm and a dog rolling around that I just picked up, but they've probably been out there for a while. Until I looked out the window, I didn't see it. But the reality is those informations were coming into my body all the time. So we have tons of information. So one of the coolest things you guys talk about is the RAS, which we don't have time to go into the RAS. You're going to have to get in the course to get the RAS. But the idea of, when I was looking to buy Mini Coopers, I saw every Mini Cooper that was on the road. When we're raising children, we saw everything had to do with children or with babies. And when we're looking to buy a house, we saw every for sale sign. But most of the time, we don't see those things. We don't even acknowledge that they exist. And I think that this is, to me, this is almost the essence of the first step of exposing the fact that we don't see what we don't see. And, being able to have the tools to be able to get rid of some of those blocks and those expectations that don't allow us to see things. There are a couple more comments that we have, and we're getting close to our end of our time. So I want to make sure I get back to Scott with some of the offerings that we're doing. But there was another comment from Sarah and also from Lori, both in the similar kind of line. And I guess probably the easiest way to say this is that there are many types of work. And one of our favorite educators in Polestar out of London is Liz Bussey. And Liz is super excited about this program as well. But Liz brings a ton of knowledge. I had her on a couple of weeks ago where we were talking about dealing with the crisis and the emotional well-being. Just a great facilitator, great person. And she's super excited about this program as well. We'd love to have her getting up into the facilitating mode. I think we've mentioned her name. Sarah has worked with Liz in the past and have been coached by Liz and has had many benefits. And also looking at the work in universities where this is always a topic of study. I think the thing that differs is that it just doesn't get packaged in a way that is consumable. I think that's really what TPI brings to it. And the Lori along the same line said, are you familiar with the Landmark Forum, which is out of California, if I'm not mistaken, and the courses they offer? And if so, can you share what the differences are between them? I wouldn't know the differences between them. I don't know if Scott or Tracy, enough about Landmark. I mean, I've known a lot of people that have gone through Landmark, but I personally have not.
Yeah, I'll just add one piece, Brent, to just in mindful of time, is that you nailed it when you said it's really sort of what we cover and how we cover it. And so what I've learned about, I've not gone through the Landmark Forum program, but I know lots of people that have. And so they might have components or a certain way that they do and cover some things that we do. What we've been told is that we cover a broader spectrum of understanding how our mind works and then how to use tools to change the way we think. And it's the same feedback we get for people that have gone through, whether it be a Landmark Forum program, or they've watched a researcher online, or they have gone to a Tony Robbins program. Everybody has their own strengths. We just come at it differently. And what we've been told, to your point, is the package and the sequence and intentionality of how we step through all of these components to help people have a full understanding of how our mind works, and then to be able to put that into practice. And that's what creates the ahas and the stickiness and the ability to change.
Yeah.
And I would just add to that really quickly, to your point, it's that algorithm. There's a specific algorithm that has been created. So each of these concepts and principles layer on top of each other to build this foundation for growth, for change, if you want, or for taking yourself to the next level, whatever, personally, professionally, whatever that is in your world, in your space and time. That's very powerful. And to go back to what we talked about earlier, it's more than just here's the book and answer some questions and now you've magically been certified or gone through this program. It's the application. It's those teachable moments and how to apply it in your life, and then having, like in our programs that we're doing, you have a week to assimilate that and then see it take action in your own life as you come back into the next unit. So there's a very specific way that it transforms and moves people through the process.
Thank you, Tracy. There was a comment from Jody in the audience, and a very powerful one. She said the COVID-19 is a disruptor with a positive effect of allowing us to reflect and change our beliefs and patterns. I don't know if either of you wanted to comment on Jody's comment before I say my little bit. Just the idea of how the universe deals us cards sometimes that force us to go through this process.
Yeah, I think Jody said it very well. I'll just give a very quick comment on this, is that you're absolutely right. Sometimes there are things that we choose to change on our own, and sometimes there are forced disruptors that come into our lives. And it's all about how we handle those things. And so many people will go into the COVID situation feeling like they're out of control and can't do anything. And then there's others that find a way to take and find opportunity through this. And that is really about mindset. And so great example of that right now. Sometimes we do it on our own, and sometimes it's done for us. And when we go into organizations, we help facilitate or catalyze this, or with individuals, hopefully before it's done for us, so that we can do it our own and intentionally to be able to continue to grow, to be more prepared when things like this do happen.
Thank you, Scott. Tracy, any thoughts on that?
I'll say
that. Okay.
I was just say, for the sake of time, I will say what Scott said.
Thanks. There were a lot of people that were asking questions similar to one that Sarah asked earlier about, is it available? Is it available for clients? Is it available for themselves? Who all is it for, and how do we go there? Let's take the last minute or two, Scott, maybe just sharing with us today what programs are out there that we've been working on. And of course, we'll send you this information on the email afterwards that goes out with the link to the video. And make sure if you have any questions, you can contact us and ask us more questions. So Scott?
Yeah, super, Brendan. We're just really excited and thankful, grateful to partner with you to offer these out to your team and to your network. Very quickly, 2 programs, grounded really in similar education, but presented, and the learning experience is different. On the left, you'll see in your slide is the Mindsetting for Wellbeing and Performance program, and that's the program that Brent and Tracy talked about that's running now. We've had a number of cohorts or groups through the Polestar Pilates family go through this program. Hopefully we'll have some of them come on and share as well their experiences. And Brent, you've been through this now a few times with us. And this is 7 core learning modules with 3 reinforcement modules that come with that. As Brent mentioned, it's sort of a blended learning. So there is stuff you do online through the Polestar learning platform, or the LMS. And then there's these interactive group discussion sessions that are led by a trained and certified facilitator. Tracy has been doing these with Shelley Power from your family. These generally are a unit a week. So think of that almost like a 7-week program. And the power in this really is then having that ability to be able to learn, reflect, come back, discuss, hear it through different lenses, have a facilitator help learn and educate and provoke a little bit more, and then continue that learning process. And today, our retail price in that program is $299. Brent will reveal for you a COVID pricing on that when you go on to the program for a period of time. And then in development and coming soon is a self-paced, self-directed program that's similar education, but really is more for somebody that wants to go through the program at their own time, their own speed, and doesn't have the interactive group discussions associated with it. We're looking to offer ways to be able to plug into a group discussion or something after the program if you want it, but this is just another option if people like to learn this way. And this is the same 7 core learning modules, 3 reinforcement modules. It's purely online and self-paced, just with you, no group discussions, and there's access for a period of time. And the retail price on that program is $199. Again, there's a COVID price, and I understand that Melissa will be sending out to you, or the Polestar team will be sending out to you, some follow-on information about the program, and also a link to be able to go in and learn more and register for the next program. I think we're open now for registration for the next group, if I understand properly, right, Brent?
I believe that if it's not, it'll be open in the next day or 2. So we're looking at a start date somewhere towards the middle of June for the next cohort. And then we'll probably have a a group, a cohort that starts every month afterwards based on the demand. So.
And if I can just add one last piece in here to this, Brent, you'll see on the name of the self-paced, self-directed program, it's Adventure Future. So again, it's about taking control. And the subtitle in here is it starts with self-talk. And so we all talked about, Brent, you mentioned it, Tracy, you spoke about it in here, is that self-talk and how that either holds us back or propels us forward. And so that's a powerful learning in this program of the ability to understand and control self-talk. It's in both programs, just presented a little bit differently. And it's a concept that we routinely get back from people as one of the most powerful that they've learned about and how to control going through the program. And again, Brent, we're just thrilled to be able to offer this out with you.
Yeah, we're excited too. Tracy?
I was just going to add to that. So a lot of people have heard about self-talk. I hear my instructors on my Peloton classes talk about self-talk all the time. So if that's nothing new, what I'm not going to share with you is what we do with self-talk and that next step with self-talk. That's the motor that drives the boat. That's the power behind self-talk. So if you ever want to find out, sign up for one of the classes.
Thanks, guys. Hey, there was a comment that came in that I just saw a lot of comments, but this one in particular I wanted to address, and then we'll close out the webinar. This is from Colby, and he directed it towards me, just saying, you mentioned letting go of all expectations set on you. And what about when those expectations are good? For example, if a child is counting on a parent to be strong, good for them too, then doesn't letting go of the expectation that allow the person to become actually a worse parent? So, this is that's a great question. And even with the idea of letting go of the perceived expectations, because I don't know that people actually had those expectations of me. I think they were perceptions that I created around those things. It's how I developed, right? And I was lucky to be raised by really good parents. Like if there's any great attribute inside of me of compassion and kindness, it comes from my mom. But I had to also discover that that's me too, that my own spirit, my own energy, my own mind is happy when I'm in service of others. And that compassion is essential for me to be happy. And even though I was raised up with those good expectations, the reality is I had to go to a point, and this is something Liz Bussey talks about, is like, when you're asked to go out and do a service project or to help somebody, and you feel obliged to do it because the expectation is to be good. Now, the expectation is a good expectation because we know that service is important. But if that service doesn't come from inside your heart, like your desire to serve or help somebody, or that your actions are all based on ego and based on some kind of reciprocal reward, like I want to get the pat on my back from my mom for being a good boy, right? Then we're missing the highest level of joy. And I think that part of this pathway is being able to understand that I choose to be compassionate. I choose to be a peaceful person. I choose to avoid violence. I choose to be a loyal husband. I choose to be a good physical therapist. I choose to be educated in my profession. And it's because those are decisions now that I'm making through my observation when I ask the question, who am I? And I think that this program gives us the tools to do it. And definitely in no way Colby takes away from all the great things and what we create as expectations too as parents. And hopefully I did a decent job of allowing my kids to be able to discover themselves as well, and still give them the proper line and discipline that I felt was necessary in that transition from childhood to adulthood, of being able to be responsible for your thoughts and responsible for your actions. So great comment. Listen, we're out of time. I want to thank both of you so much for taking your time out of your day to join me on a Polestar webinar. And I hope that people are excited about it, and please follow up. And if you have questions, we've certainly had a lot of amazing feedback from our educators and now our licensees. And we look forward to hearing from you. And I'm especially excited about the new product. As soon as it comes out, I want to make sure that my clients are getting that product. I think it's a perfect product. It's priced to the right place. We are willing to, basically we had talked about doing a COVID discount and on this first cohort. So anybody that is interested in doing so and wants to register in the next upcoming day, we'll take $100 off of those courses that you decide to register for. So thank you so much. We have a really exciting webinar coming up next week as well with Daniel Vedetta and with my good friend Victor Union from California. We're going to be meeting with the creators of the OOV and of the connector and talking about their creation, talking about their applications, and talking about proprioception and some of the neuromuscular science things that you know I am a sucker for. So I'm looking forward to being able to talk with my friends on that. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Tell your friends about us and have a great weekend. Memorial Day weekend, be safe. Social distancing is a must. Do not believe what people tell you about being able to go everywhere and do everything. So be careful. We love you and have a great, great weekend. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.